Please remain seated. The show will begin in 3, 2...
Like a Hellcat. For more awesome content, like and subscribe now.
Heavy snow had been falling, and shining my lantern which swung through the winter winds that blew, I called out for my brother. I treaded 6 miles, trudging through inches of snow that reached up to my knees. I shivered from the wind chills that howled and moaned, to which I then blindly navigated myself over a steep hill. It was around 11 o'clock when I reached a road, and I then realized that I was near by the same trail that my grandfather and I took when we went hunting. This road stood upon a bridge, and the road went on for another 7 miles, till you reached the town. In Alaska, the town wasn't very large, and everyone knew everybody. We had a population of 250, which included my grandparents, siblings, and myself. Anything that transpired, whether creepy or strange, there was always a report about it, and people talk. Nobody else was out at this time of the night, not even if it was a clear night. Everybody was afraid of something, and news travels fast in a small town. I walked another 10 feet when I noticed something shiny lying on the ground. I leaned down and slowly picked it up. It was a wolf pendant with a broken silver chain that belonged to my brother Achak. I had desperately searched for any sign of him for what felt like forever, and then I saw a track of 2 straight lines going into the direction of the bridge on the far right of me, and there were also spots of crimson, fresh trickles of blood. Whose blood it belonged to, I didn't want to think of it. I just wanted to find my brother. I run over to peer down over the bridge, and I cautiously slide down, and I then had crossed the icy lake once more. I called out for Achak again as the wind eerily whispered in my ear, and there was this disembodied voice. It sounded familiar. I listened, standing stock still in the frozen tundra. It was saying my name back to me, and my heart sank when I realized what it was. The footsteps it made were loud stomps, and they made loud, crunching noises onto the ice. I hesitated to turn around, and when I did, a shadowy figure stood within a yard or 2 from me. As I moved closer into the light of the full moon, I managed to get a closer look. It was 15 feet in height, heavily coated in black fur with grayish skin, and it had a skeletal face with yellow glowing eyes. It had the head of a moose with massive antlers. Its chest cavity was decomposed, and its black claws were lengthy, and from its maw it was drooling and gnawing on some type of meat, which I presumed was human. My eyes widened in horror as the creature inched towards me, and I ran like hell, slipping and sliding as I stumbled. This thing let out this god-awful roar which shook the trees and scared away any birds that were hibernating. I then leaped and landed into a snowbank when I reached the other side of the lake. I didn't dare look back. I ran deeper into the forest, ducking under tree branches and climbing over logs. I was calling out to my brother again, and at this point I was lost. The woods shifted, and it was like deja vu all over again. Many tree branches around me seemed to get longer, outstretched more. This happened every time I blinked, and I once again heard the monster behind me. I reached into my bag and grabbed some sage, quickly lighting it and allowing the smoky aroma of sacred herbs to fill the air as I let out the chant in native tongue that my grandmother taught me in order to protect myself. This made the creature enraged, and the smell repelled it, and I was able to break away again from its strong grip. After running for a while, I nearly passed out, but I had to keep going. My brother was probably frightened and hungry, and I knew deep down he was depending on me. Achak! Achak, brother, where are you? I hollered through the roaring wind. Nothing. I couldn't bring myself to go back home. I couldn't abandon Achak. I took shelter in a cave once I reached a clearing and went inside, building a small fire. I was hoping by some miracle my brother would find me. I waited and waited. It was after midnight and I eventually dozed off. Maybe like 10 or 15 minutes later, I was woken up by a sound. I jolted up and stepped out of the cave to listen more carefully. I heard a twig snap and something was flowing, hanging onto a branch. It was my brother's flannel shirt. There was another set of footprints about my brother's size, and I was confused. It was quiet as the grave out there. I just took his jacket off of the branch, and it had the smell to it. It just reeked. I put it in my bag once I got back inside and went back to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to the morning sun and was surrounded by the sheriff and local deputies who took me home. I was later scolded by my grandparents, and I then showed them my brother's jacket. The authorities had taken everyone's statements and proceeded to look further into my brother's disappearance. Then in February, we received news that my brother was in fact seen wandering the streets of the town, and police confirmed this, telling us that he was admitted into a mental institution. We drove down there and we were led to this cell with my brother who was in chains. He looked different. His hair had fallen out and he was gaunt, had this ashy gray skin tone, and he had signs that which showed he was anemic. We had examined his bony frame. His eyes were soulless and he slowly lifted his head to stare at me. We were all bewildered, but my grandmother just glared at him. It didn't register to me as to why she looked at him that way. But it's as though she knew something had gotten a hold of Achak, and it was something pure evil. We all left and gone home. About a week later, we watched the news, and we discovered that there were a total of 3 casualties. An elderly couple and their daughter were eaten alive and mutilated to the point that the police found it hard to identify them. Then at the same time, my brother, at the time of their gruesome deaths, escaped the mental hospital. I haven't slept a wink for 6 months after that. My family has never been the same. I would feel eyes on me and I could feel something weighing down on me. It wasn't just guilt over the fact that I failed to save my brother. This hostility, this predatory threat is still roaming Alaska, amongst a few or many other dark entities. I can't erase what I saw. I can't forget the look in my brother's eyes, the look of animalistic hunger. And to this day, I feel like those energies have stayed with me. They tug, pull, try to claw or slither their way in. Some succeed and others don't. I've always known from that moment of what I saw in that cell that day, it wasn't my brother anymore. It was a Wendigo.